Hi, this is Kris Castro, and this is the Lead Upside Down podcast, where leaders are sharing how they are leading in non-traditional ways based on Jesus's leadership style. If you have any questions, go back to the trailer episode and that should answer them. But right now, grab your favorite beverage and settle in. If you have any questions or comments, especially if something resonates with you, feel free to go to my website, begin2shift.com, and set up a coffee and conversation meeting, and we can chat about it in more detail. All right, enjoy. So today I have Lead Upside Down guest Beth Erwin, and I've known Beth, I think it's a year or so. She graduated last year from seminary. I am graduating next year from seminary. And so we've gotten a chance to get to know each other, which is funny. We both live in the metro Atlanta area, but we've never actually been in the same room. But we know each other well because we've connected a lot. It's been super fun.
Yes. Yes.
Let me read Beth's official introduction, and then we're going to talk about leading upside down. So Beth Erwin loves Jesus. She has experienced firsthand the healing heart of God within her soul and has led others to embrace this freedom through her inner healing ministry, spanning over the last 30 years. She is the founder of Ezekiel Tree Ministries, which is dedicated to facilitating healing by leading others into encounters with Christ. As I mentioned, she received her master's in pastoral ministry, and she is also a certified practitioner with Global Awakening's Christian Healing Certification Program. She's also a gifted speaker and is available for teaching and ministry. You can get a hold of her through her website at ezekieltree.com. I'm also going to put all of her other contact information in the show notes. And I'm excited. She is releasing her first book called Wander No More, Stepping Out of the Wilderness into Abundant Life in November. So welcome, Beth, to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love this. I love this concept. I love this subject. Thank you from the kingdom for doing this.
Well, it's been a lot of fun interviewing all the people that I know that lead upside down. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does lead upside down mean to you, and how has leading upside down affected your work in life?
To be honest with you, lead upside down, what that means to me is the polar opposite of everything I was taught. and adopting a Jesus model, which is the equivalent of bizarro world, right? I mean, it in so many ways is the exact opposite of everything we think we should do in modern culture. It has affected my life tremendously by those who were brave enough to lead me upside down before I even knew what the concept was. And also just allowed me to have such a peace and beautiful sense of purpose in watching other people begin to flourish in what they've been called to do by the Lord.
Fantastic. And as everybody knows, I always do this in two segments. So we're going to answer one more question, and then we're going to take a quick break. And that question is, for those that are watching, if they want to step into leading upside down in a better way, or they've never done it before and they want to learn how, what would you suggest?
Start on your knees. And that is to get on your knees and say, Lord, I want you to truly help me love others the way that you love them. And spoiler alert, it starts by learning to love yourself.
And that's true. So many people forgot that that God created them, God loves them just as much as everybody else, and that they need to take care of themselves emotionally, spiritually, physically, the whole gamut. Absolutely. So Beth, I know that you leading upside down, you've been doing it for many, many, many years. I think you and I are about the same age. And I know that part of the reason that you wrote the book is because you have learned so many lessons in life which are connected to leading upside down. So I would love for you to kind of think about some stories that you have that would really identify and showcase what leading upside down looks like.
Okay, the first story that comes to my mind is a story that, as you mentioned, is in the book, and it's called The Purple Riviera. My father was a very interesting man. I was not raised with traditional parents at all, which, was very good for the economy. Spent a lot of money in counseling. Great people, just, parenting was not their strong suit. And my dad, he loved to go fast. My father was well known for his ability to drive a car well and to drive it very quickly. And he loved cars. And so my dad comes home one evening, right as the sun is about to set, and he's like, got a new car. And which wasn't entirely unusual because he, as I said, he loved cars. And so we go outside and there is this I don't remember the year, but I think it was a 1967, I have it right in the book, Buick Riviera. And he was like, and my dad's favorite color was black. And so he's like, he's got this black Riviera and he's so excited about it. And I get up the next morning and I go outside, maybe like 5 or 6 years old. And I'm like, it looks purple. It was purple. It was not black. But despite its kind of unusual color, it had another really unusual thing, which I think is what really attracted my dad. It had a speedometer that I have never seen before, nor have I seen since. As a matter of fact, I've even tried to Google it. And it was a cylinder and it had this red line and the numbers rolled around. So the more you pressed on the gas, it rolled up to your speed. And so the speedometer went up to 155 miles an hour. It had a 457 Wildcat engine in it, so this thing was supposedly would fly. And that's what my dad really liked about it. And so we drove that thing like crazy. One day, my dad, my brother, and I get in the car, and we're going to go visit some relatives. And so I'm in the back seat, and my brother is up front, and we drive as fast as we possibly can from point A to point B, with the windows down. You notice I have thin, little petite hair there. We get there, and everybody's like, "Whoa, how did y'all get here so fast?" We're like, "Well, we were on, Hey, that thing on Titanic, we're at the front of the boat going, it was the top of the world." That was nothing compared to riding in this purple Riviera, I'm telling you. And so we get there, we're so excited. And then it happens. Someone notices my hair. I was a tangled, my dad was bald. My brother had his hair cut short. I was this tangled mess. And so I was also kind of the guinea pig. So all the older cousins were like, "No problem, Uncle Billy, we can take care of it," and they take me in there and somebody was like, "I've heard peanut butter gets out tangled." So they put peanut butter and I'm crying, they're tugging my hair. There is a point to this, I promise. And then they decide, oh no, well, maybe it wasn't peanut butter, maybe it was olive oil. About an hour or so later, I am dehydrated from all the crying. I am in mass quantities of pain. I'm really, remembering all the stories of Indians scalping people, from my childhood. And I'm wearing half of the pantry, and I'm still covered in tangles. So, the thing that as I thought back on that story as I was writing the book, and I realized one thing that we do, and I don't mention this part in the book, is that we're always in too big of a hurry to get from point A to point B. It's like the end result is the goal. No, not in God's kingdom. The journey's the goal. Every step. I will not despise the day of small beginnings. And so learning to really love and appreciate the step, because people that we mentor, or minister to are in different places, and they grow and they mature and they receive healing at different levels, at different paces. Some people like, just pick up, and other people, it just takes a while. When we're not so interested in hurrying to this destination, then we're really embracing the heart of Jesus, because we're embracing the person in the moment. We're being present in the moment. And I think that's a huge part of leading upside down. Jesus never stopped to he didn't fail to stop to reach the multitudes, to reach, he's on his way to heal a little girl who is dying. And yet he stops and says, "Who touched me?" Because he knew his plans and his purposes would be accomplished. And we have to trust the Lord in it. He's got this. He's going to get the end result. We don't have to rush there. The second part of that story is that's so important is sometimes our best laid plans leave us in a tangled mess, and all our ideas to unravel it are not very good. Some of them can be quite painful indeed, and very messy on top of that. And if we will just stop along the way when we have gotten into a tangled mess and say, "Okay, Lord, what do you want to do here? How do you want to bring honor and glory? How do you want to bring beauty, out of the ashes of this mess?" Which again is part of staying present in the moment, which is not my natural inclination to do. I mean,
Well, being raised by a man who drives fast, I would imagine that would be habitual just from being in the environment.
yeah, I mean, everything in me is like, accomplish the goal. My daughter, when she was in first grade, she had her first test. And she came home, she was grinning ear to ear. She's so excited. She goes, "Mom, I took my first test. It was awesome. I loved it. I did great. I was the first one finished." And she throws it down, and I'm like, "Honey, did you actually I mean, she failed the test." You're not wanting to go to her first grade. That F was not for fun, hun. But she was just so excited that she finished first, that nothing else was relevant. And I often think in our culture that, in my family, that was a very big part of our culture. But I also think it's really part of our culture, and that we all need to slow down.
And I think another kind of tangent on that is when we're all working to achieve goals, whatever they might be, and they might be very worthy, honorable goals. Sometimes we run over people in the process of getting there, and that's not very Christ-like either. And I mean, it took me a long time to slow down because I was so trying to get to where I was wanting to go that I didn't always consider everybody's feelings. Like, I didn't do the things I should have done. And so there was a lot of maturity and pruning in that process. It sounds like it's been the same for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think back, and I often say prayers for some of the people that have my tire marks across them as I was racing to the finish line.
Let's look at this from another angle. You are not only do you lead upside down, you've got your ministry, you have a lot of people who you mentor, you've got a lot of people who you lead. How do you teach others and around you to lead upside down? Because I know even though it's probably not called that in your world, you're doing it. So provide some examples about how you train others.
Inner healing is a fabulous process for that, actually, because part of leading upside down is being comfortable enough in who you are to allow other people to be who they are, and to actually have the heart to empower them to be exactly who God created them to be. And when we're embracing things, that are counterproductive to life. The Lord says, I've set before you blessing and curse, life and death. And then he exhorts us, what a great God. He goes, choose life. I want you to choose the best. And I think part of choosing life isn't just choosing, again, in our very individualistic, cultures, we think, okay, I'm choosing life for me. But sometimes choosing life means also, choosing life for other people. I'm going to help you choose life until you can choose it for yourself. And part of choosing life is breaking agreements with those things that are not life-giving at all. Two of the biggest obstacles that are going to come to prevent us from leading upside down is going to be pride and jealousy. Because leading upside down says, I may actually help you to be better than me. What? No, wait, I'm the leader. I'm supposed to be the best. And none of us are going to be the best at everything. And we want to be surrounded by people who are better at certain things than we are. But sometimes it may be empowering people to be better at what we're the best at too. And again, if we're about the journey and it's not about the destination, and it's about right relationship with the Lord, we can learn to be okay in that. Now, am I always 100% okay with that every minute of the day? No, I'm not. I mean, sometimes I have to go and sit down, Jesus, we need to have a heart-to-heart about this. I'm struggling a little bit, and I don't like the ugly that I'm feeling inside here. And he's faithful. He always, helps us work through it. And we have to maintain that connection with the Lord and say, what are you doing in this moment? And can I, meet with you and partner with you and what you are doing? I never really wanted to ask the Lord what his long-term plans for me were, because I was afraid. They were either going to be too big or they weren't going to be big enough. I mean, he was not going to hit that right in my book. I was either going to be disappointed or overwhelmed. And I just really wasn't looking forward to either one. So I figured we'll just take it one day at a time. And so finally one day I approached the Lord and said, okay, I really want to be a grown-up. What's the plan? And he said, well, but baby girl, I've called you to influence the influencers. What? And I started laughing. I pulled a Sarah. I laughed because I just thought that was the funny. Okay, I confess, I had a little daydream. When he said that, I saw myself on a plane, and I couldn't decide if I was going to be flying just by myself on an airplane, randomly sitting next to Randy Clark or Bill Johnson. So I just decided I'd be sitting in the middle of them both in my little imagination here. And so, they're talking, and I look up and I say something, and they're like, whoa, wow. They're just blown away by my vast wisdom. And as I imagined this, then I started laughing even harder. It's like, that is just crazy. And so then I was like, Lord, that's just not going to work. I don't see that happening anytime soon. And the Lord just is like, you asked the question, I gave you an answer. And so I was like, okay. And so I thought, okay, I'm not going to laugh. I'm just going to wait and see what you meant by that. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, I was having a ministry session with somebody actually in another country. I knew her on a certain level, but like, how much of her life could I really, know in that thing? And so as I was ministering to her, and I shared something, and then she said, oh, this is fabulous. I'm going to use this on my sermon Sunday. And I did not realize that she routinely preached in her church and was using some of these things in her sermon. And in the moment that she said that, the Lord said, see, you just influenced an influencer. I was like, oh, wow. And so I realized that, we're going to influence the influencers, which is what we should all really want to do. It doesn't mean that we have to be bigger than the influencer. also shortly after that, I was in a group session, and actually Randy Clark was talking, and I was like, oh, well, this is just what I think. And I shared something about the Christian Healing Certification Program that I thought, and he goes, that's a great idea. And he looked at somebody and said, write that down. We need to implement that. And the Lord was like, I told you you're influenced. And now, do I see myself as one day being a name like Randy Clark? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not thinking that's where I'm going with this. But the point is if I use my voice in a God-given capacity, the whole idea of leadership, of being the person at the top of the hump, the person, with the most skills, the best voice, the prettiest, all those are not, that's not what true leadership is. If we think about it, Jesus absolutely revolutionized the world from a very grassroots level. You didn't see him going and talking to the kings and the princesses and and that sort of stuff. He just by talking and changing the hearts of ordinary people.
Absolutely. I want to go back to what you said earlier. Jesus saying to you, baby girl, I love that because when you really listen for the Lord, he speaks to you in a way that resonates. And we all hear from him differently. I mean, I don't particularly hear the audible voice of the Lord, but when things happen, it's like I call them Jesus moments. Like when I see 333 on a clock or
Mhm.
anywhere, that's always a Jesus moment for me. And there are other things. And I love how the Lord calls you baby girl and you recognize that. And it immediately positions you to receive whatever he's going to tell you. And the second thing, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to tell you that to hear the actual audible voice of God is an extremely rare thing that even very well-known documented prophets will say. Some of them have never heard the audible voice of God. I've heard the audible voice of God one time, and it was freaky. So most of the time when we hear the Lord, we're actually hearing that still small voice inside our own brain that sounds just like our very own voice, just a whole lot smarter. And I know that you know that. I just thought that maybe somebody listening might need a little clarification
No,
on.
that's great. I'm glad because I think sometimes when I have these conversations, we're fluent like in what we mean, but not everyone understands because everybody that's listening comes from different backgrounds and thoughts. So
Right.
and I'm humble enough to be able to go, yep, I'm glad you clarified that. Like, I'm glad.
Yeah,
So thank you.
that's what I love about you. You're so fun to work with because you can lead upside down.
And
And you have such a heart to empower people and bring people together. I just love that.
thank you, Beth. So the second thing I want to pull back from what you said earlier is that you recognize that different people learn things different ways, different people need to be mentored in different ways. And you also mentioned about encouraging others to be better than you. And you
Mhm.
and I are so on the same wavelength on that because the Lord has different ways of doing things, and all of us have different gifts, and we all get to shine, sometimes at the same time, but often at different times. And we have to be willing to submit to somebody else's gift when it's very obvious that they have the greater gift. And that's leading upside down too.
Yeah, and that goes back to having that time where the Lord may call you some version of baby girl, that you can go to, and I don't always have the most godly feelings. Sometimes I respond great, and other times not so good. And running to the Lord and saying, I got this ugly brewing inside. I feel it. I don't want to be jealous of my friend's success. I don't want to be threatened. It reminds me of another story from my book, which is called Wander No More, Stepping Out of the Wilderness into Abundant Life. And it's all about breaking agreements with these things that hold us back from being the person that God's created us to be. It's not just so that we'll be more likable people, like, oh, I want to be more likable. I do. I admit that. But it's about, being able to walk in your purpose and your calling with joy and thriving in this thing called life. And leading upside down when we're all doing it together. I mean, we're just helping each other go from thriving to thriving, right? And what a beautiful world is that. But I worked in a place where everyone was dog eat dog. Everybody's got to be on top. And the warehouse manager often felt belittled in his life. He did not come from a place of feeling empowered. I had gone out and I was operations manager, and I'd gone out into the warehouse, and one of his workers saw me doing something and came over to help me. And I was like, "What? Aren't you, so sweet? Why are you doing this?" And he says, "Because my grandma taught me to never let a lady do this sort of stuff on her own." Now, as the story progresses, you will find out I disproved the lady comment. He kind of erroneously called me something I was not going to be in 5 minutes. But I thought that was so sweet. We were having this moment, but the warehouse manager comes out. And he, instead of being like, "Hey, I have an employee that's such a great human being," he felt threatened by the situation because he felt like I was usurping his authority because I had told his employee to do something without getting his permission or having him do it. And he got really furious, and he gets up in my face, and he's yelling and screaming. So I decided I'd just kind of yell and scream right back, no problem. I was a lot less sanctified then. And so we were in this shouting match. And as I turned to walk away, because I had to get the last word in. That's not part of leading upside down, by the way. That's what not to do, leading upside down. I decided that it sounded like he said if I would have been standing closer to him, he would have hit me, is what the comment sounded like. And so all my unhealed parts decided to come up and have a party in that moment. And I flipped around and I get in his face and I'm like, "Well, here I am. You want a piece of me? I'm here." I mean, this is like insanity, right? I mean, he's crazy, I'm crazy. And I realized, like, this guy is going to mop up the floor with me. I'm a girl. He's really strong. And I was like, this is just ludicrous. I can't believe it. But I was also in a male-dominated industry. And now at this point, I'm in too far. I can't back down. I mean, I got to let him beat me up because that would be, worse than like walking away. And I think he's realizing, oh my gosh, I'm in a position where I'm going to have to beat up a girl. Like, how bad is this? And so we're both knowing that we've allowed this to get to a place where it's just not going to be good. And so we both made some sort of smart aleck comment to each other and just turned around, and walked away. Well, I went in, and that began my inner healing journey, because I walked in but we had phone books back then. For those of you that don't know, there were these very helpful books that had everybody's name and phone number in them. And I had heard about an inner healing ministry in our area through someone at my church. And I went and I looked it up and I found the number and I called and I made an appointment, and that radically changed my life. But neither one of us had the capacity to lead upside down in that moment, because we were both very wounded individuals who thought that we had something we had to prove to the world. And that led us both to putting ourselves in situations that were only going to bring great humiliation. It led us both to putting ourselves in positions that, one, I was now trying to box way above my weight class, And he was putting in a position of being humiliated by actually boxing well below his weight class. Now he's going to be the bully. I guess that just made me the dummy. But that's what happens when, if we're really truly going to lead upside down, we have to come and submit our emotions. Our emotions are great, wonderful things. They're flags that tell us what's going on. But when we have that emotion that says, anger, I'm going to get in his face and beat him up, I've got to get the last word in, these sort of things that we have to stop, and we have to take these things to the Lord and say, Lord, I need healing. Why am I responding this way? Why am I responding this way? And we have to be able to go, I'm not going to be in the drama anymore. I'm going to walk away from it. But then other times, we got to be willing to be the bad guy. Sometimes leading upside down and truly leading, we're going to say things to people that they really don't want to hear. And they may not like it. And they may not like us because we said it. But if we truly love them, we have to say it. If you truly love me, you're not going to let me walk out of the house with my pantyhose tucked up in the back of my skirt. That's in the book. I did that. Walked around for about 4 hours that way. I did not feel loved and appreciated that no one told me this.
Leading upside down is really just a choice. And I agree with you that inner healing is necessary. And so there might be some people who don't really understand what inner healing means. It's more than counseling. Why don't you just take a second, just for those who are listening, explain a little bit about what inner healing is comparatively to the other self-help and wellness things that are out there.
Yeah, I'm not against counseling. I think counseling serves some great purposes, and sometimes counseling might be good after you've had inner healing. So counseling deals with, okay, this is how you respond. I'm going to teach you how to respond a different way. Inner healing deals with, this is how you respond, and this is why. You have an infected cut on your body, and we're going to clean it out, and we're going to stitch it up, and we're going to get it healed. What's going to happen if I've got a big old bruise on my arm and I'm walking in the mall and somebody hits my arm on that bruise? I'm going to yell out because it hurts. And we have these little bruised wounds, all over us. Sometimes they're infected, sometimes they're just bruises. And inner healing comes and identifies those and allows Jesus to come in, because we cannot fix ourselves. We can only manage behavior up to a certain point. But what's the old adage? When you put a tea bag into boiling water, whatever's inside that tea bag is going to leak out. And you can't stop it. So I can manage my behavior up to a certain point, but when that water gets hot enough, I'm going to start leaking out. And we can leak Jesus, or we can leak, like that day, I was leaking on my wounded. No one's ever going to hit me again. He was leaking his woundedness. No one's ever going to disrespect me again. He hadn't even been disrespected, but he perceived things. So inner healing actually changes that way that we no longer perceive things in ways that they really aren't. We receive healing for the woundedness in our souls, and we also learn to forgive ourselves, which is a huge part. We receive Jesus's forgiveness. We learn to forgive those who have hurt us, which is probably one of the biggest tools that Jesus ever gave us, is by giving us the ability to forgive people. My temperament is not a forgiving temperament. I scored the lowest of all forgivers on temperament scales. But through Jesus, I can be a very forgiving person. These are the tools in inner healing that set us free from the pain and the woundedness of our past, so that we can actually begin to respond differently. And that's where sometimes counseling may need to come at the end of that, because we're in such a habit of acting a certain way that we may need somebody to even tell us. I was in such a habit of thinking negatively that when I was reading in the Word, think on these things, whatever is lovely, pure, of good report. I actually had to call a friend of mine and say, okay, now don't laugh, but I'm really serious. This is what the Bible says. Can you give me some examples of that? I don't know I don't know what that might be. And she started laughing. And I was like, no, like really seriously, I'm serious. I don't know how to do this. Did I explain it there?
Yeah, I think you did well. Yes, absolutely. What I always tell people when they ask me is something similar. Counseling is great. For me, biblical counseling is great because it keeps you in the lane of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But inner healing tends to go deeper than counseling because it goes to the roots of whatever's going on. And there's a lot of stuff that you don't even recognize that is contributing to the patterns of behavior that have probably caused you to go to counseling anyway.
Right.
And so inner healing is a process with a bunch of different really great tools. And in that environment, we are the vessels. Jesus is the healer, and we're just setting the stage and the environment for that person to have conversations with Jesus so that Jesus can heal them. And that's how I kind of explain it.
Right. And it's taking, the Word is a really cool thing. Got a lot of great information in there that sometimes we skim over and we just don't see. But there are spiritual principles. And we acknowledge that in the world. We all, half of us don't know what it means, me included, but E equals MC squared all the time. Whatever that means, we all know it's true. And we get the concept of gravity. When we throw something up in the air and it falls down and hits us on the head, we're not like, man, there's angels up there that got a really bad mood. You see, they threw that apple on my head. No, I mean, we understand it's gravity, but yet we fail to apply that same reasoning and truth into spiritual principles. And the Bible tells us, honor your father and mother that all may go well with you. So inner healing goes back and it helps us identify those ways where we didn't exactly honor mom and dad, then those areas of our life. If we didn't honor our parents and finances, chances are we may be struggling in finances in our natural life. And judge lest ye be judged. And we go back where we have these what we call bitter root judgments, where, because not all judging is bad. If you're people are jumping off a bridge, we can judge that's not a good thing to do and refrain. That judgment, when there's that bitterness attached to it, when there's that condemnation, attached to it, those type of judgments come back on us. Man, those things come back on me so fast, and which leads us to you reap what you sow. I used to always tell everybody I have a terrible sense of direction. I just know that I do. And they would say, why? And I said, because the Bible says you reap what you sow. And I have clearly wandered into somebody else's garden because I knew I did not sow these kinds of seeds. I was wrong. I did. I had. I just thought I was in the wrong garden. And that's a great thing about inner healing, is then not only do you get healing for the things in your past, both the things that were done to you and the things that you have done, but you also learn to apply these spiritual principles so that you can walk in, because we're human. For whatever reason, God likes humans. He's not trying to take our humanity, just erase it out of us. But we're still going to have our bumps along the way. And we can immediately take what we've learned through Jesus healing us in the past and make that trip a whole lot shorter in the future. I mean, like sometimes I am repenting while I am doing something.
Very cool. So before we wrap up, let me just make one comment, and then I want to throw it back to you for like final thoughts or suggestions or whatever. one of the things about leading upside down is you get to do that really, really well when you're abiding with Jesus and when you are in a really good perspective, mind, and spiritual state. And none of us come to the table that way. We all have sanctification and pruning parts that we have to deal with. If we're not a well-oiled machine, not perfectly oiled, but well-oiled, we are not going to function at our best, and we're not going to experience the thriving life that Jesus wants us to have. And my personal feeling is everyone could benefit from a little inner healing, or at least, just a session to see what else needs to be addressed. So for anybody that's listening, feel free to reach out to Beth, feel free to reach out to me, whatever. Like, again, I always say there's no competition in the kingdom. Just reach out if you feel like an inner healing session would be good. One of us would be happy to help you.
Yeah, we're both together. Absolutely. And I would like to say, and there is just no shame at all in this for me. When I shared, going to counseling, and some of my family members found out about it, they were horrified. And so we were at a family function, and about 30 family members, and one of the cousins is, "Oh, what's this I hear that you went to counseling?" And my mom's over there just melting, "Oh my God, they know," And I said, "Yeah." And they go, "Well, what's it like?" And I said, "This is great. I think y'all should do it too." And as I began to share my experiences, they really wanted to, but most of them were really unable because they thought that it might mean that there was something wrong with them, if they took that step. Well, guys, there's something wrong with all of us.
All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God and each other.
Yeah, and so I still go to inner healing sessions for myself. That's what we're here for. We're here to help each other dive deeper and deeper into the love of Jesus. And one of the things that again, inner healing is not because you're broken and you need to be fixed. It's because there's something going on inside your heart that is causing you to actually see the world and see Jesus differently than it really is. And so inner healing releases us to be able to have a deeper, more abiding relationship with the lover of our souls. I mean, that's a pretty good bargain right there. And as we develop this love relationship with him, Psalms 91, the last couple of verses, it says 6 things that the Lord will do. He will do because we love him. And as we are moved into this relationship, it opens up the door for God's love to be more and more operational in our lives. And when we're in this love relationship with the Lord, anything the Lord gives us, that's how you know it's a gift from God. When my husband gives me chocolate, I want to go hide it in the pantry so nobody else can have it. It's mine. mine. All mine. But when I get a gift from the Lord, the first thing I'm doing is, who can I call and share this with? I want them to have some too. And that's leading upside down. It is taking what God has given you, and out of that love and enthusiasm, just being passionate about sharing it with other people so that they can experience that joy as well. And so that's why we talk so much about inner healing today, is because we need to be healed to experience that.
Well, I think that's a good note to end on, unless you have something else you want to add.
I thought it was a pretty good note to end on too.
Well, thank you again, Beth. It was wonderful having you on the podcast. for those of you who are watching, if you want to get a hold of Beth, I'll put all of her information in the show notes. You can go down and click and connect with her if you want to. And for those who are interested in leading upside down better, feel free to schedule a coffee and conversation with me. I would love to help you do that. So have a great day, everybody. Oh, go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, I would like to say that would be a great thing to do because you are really good at that. So that you and I have batted around some things before that you were very helpful to me. So I just would like to say I really do encourage people to make that connection with you.
Oh, thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. And that's the other thing about leading upside down is we recognize that we are uniquely gifted in different ways, Beth and I. We are also gifted in similar ways, but we honor, respect, and love each other, and we willingly give however we can to each other. And that is leading upside down too. And it's because Jesus is our focus. You know, it's we do this for Jesus. We don't do this for us.
And doesn't it feels there's so much joy in that. And I lived in the fear that I was going to get one upped and not because that somebody was going to be better than me, that just meant I was going to be rejected. If somebody's better than me, then I'm going to get rejected and I'm going to get left out. That fear was a tormenting feeling. And what you just described is the joy in the kingdom. So thank you
Amen.
for this opportunity.
Amen. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching or listening, depending on how you're experiencing the podcast. And we'll see you next time we do the next episode. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out and enjoying the Lead Upside Down podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And remember, wherever you are, you can lead upside down too, just like Jesus did. Feel free to reach out to me if you want more information or if you think I can serve you in some way. Just go to my website, begin2shift.com, and click on the coffee and conversation icon and set that meeting up. Have a fantastic rest of your day.